Hello, everyone. This is the working group device management meeting for June 6th, 3rd, sorry, wrong date. Remember, this meeting falls under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically means be excellent to each other. We don't have an agenda. You can just basically raise your hand if you have something. Also, now is a good time to introduce yourself if you want to. And you are new to the group or to the meeting. Other than that, I propose that we perhaps talk about CAPS and planning for 137, because that's what's currently going on. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to raise? Okay, apparently not. In that case, yeah, let's talk about status. So we are, I think, a little bit more than 1 week away from cap freeze. I think that's next Thursday. We have done some triaging of the proposed caps for 137. What I'm showing right now is our overview slide with lots of things. Some of them just get promoted. That should be less work. Some we decided to keep in beta for another cycle, like Punk's consumable capacity, and that's because we had some fixes that we needed to make, and there's no pressing need, I think, to promote it to GA, so we could just give it some more soak time. The same applies to partitionable devices. For both, we are currently looking at performance. We found that the scheduler perf test cases that had been added weren't very realistic. We need to make it more like what a real cluster will have. For example, resource slices with 1 resource slice per node. It's typically what those features will have, but it was implemented as resource slices with a field selector for all nodes in the cluster. So the scheduler had to do a lot more work than really needed. So that's what we are currently working on for those. And then there's a whole bunch of new alphas being proposed, and many of those fall under SIG scheduling, which is, well, actually the list is even longer. This one too. These are all things that SIG scheduling needs to look at, and they have all the workload aware scheduling going on. So it's a bit difficult to figure out whether we have the necessary bandwidth to do all of those. We are trying. What we did is we tentatively tried to give SIG scheduling some priorities so that they can decide what to focus on. But it's not perfect. For example, this one here is currently P2 because it's really new, but on the other hand, it might also be something that a lot of people might run into. It's a scheduler performance issue at scale, and we're still debating exactly what scale means here because the recently opened cap doesn't really specify it. But these are the discussions that we're having in the cap PR for this one at the moment. Yeah. Other things going on, I think, yeah, list types. See, Francesco is here. So the whole idea of PCI root and how we turn that into something that is list aware or supports list is an ongoing discussion that we need to have. The list types is a mechanism at the moment. It doesn't change the definition of that attribute, but the intent certainly was that some drivers would use it for PCI root, but that's a breaking API change. As a mitigation, we have derived attributes which allow the user to bridge between one driver which uses lists and another that doesn't. Yeah, Francesco, I see your hand, so please go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to clarify. Thank you for mentioning. I want to clarify the question. So, if a driver, namely the CPU DRA driver, which didn't publish the single entry PCI root attribute, my question basically is it okay to just start sharing a string list, or it is still recommended, because the name is singular, to
Yeah.
be like the others, the older, which maybe already published a single value? That's basically the
Yeah.
core question.
So with my aspiring API reviewer hat on, I would say it's a breaking API change if any driver starts using PCI, the ks.io/PCI root attribute name, and publishes a list value for it. Because in the past, we've said this standard attribute is a string. And users may have started writing cell expressions that rely on that statement. We have the ability in the list types kep to use the includes function to hide that a certain attribute might be a string or a list of strings. But that's a new feature, and older cell expressions predating list types might not use that cell helper. So that's why I'm saying as API reviewer, this PCI root attribute has to stay as a string. Now, from a usability perspective and how we intend to evolve this, it certainly would be nicer if we could say, well, it was a string, only a string in the past. We are slowly going to make it a string or a list, and everyone accessing that attribute must be aware of that and use either handwritten code that tolerates both, or use the includes function. That would be much nicer than permanently and forever have PCI root and PCI roots, which I think is one of the proposals, where PCI roots is the list and PCI root is a single string. Because then, if we do that, we can't use the match attribute functionality. Not easily. We can't say match attribute and say PCI root, because then drivers that publish a PCI roots plural won't match. So that's the core issue. Personally, I think we should just bite the bullet and apologize and say, well, we are migrating to list and single string, because I can't imagine that this attribute really is used much in handwritten cell expressions. But that's dodging basically the question, because we're just waving away the problem. The problem exists, it just doesn't seem very likely. That's basically it.
So, in my own case, sorry to be selfish a bit, I can publish a non-standard attribute with the exact same value I would expect, like for example, dra.cpu/PCI roots plural, and then wait maybe, hopefully, a couple weeks or so while we reach consensus, and then add a new attribute which implements the recommendation from the
Yeah.
community. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
the thing is, we don't have we haven't talked about it in the other working group meeting. We've talked about it in a few places, but we've never really settled on a final decision. So we definitely need to also bring it up in the other meeting and basically just say that this is what we are doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this is
Yeah.
a larger concern than my own little driver. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you very much. This helps.
Derived attributes, of course, would help in that case, because then you can just use your custom attribute and derived attributes and map it to something that can be compared. But that defeats a bit the purpose of standardizing PCI root, because then why standardize it if the main use case for it, which was match attributes, doesn't work? So yeah, that's what at least my thinking is. Okay. Not sure what else I should call out. So durability groups. Well, actually, it could also be P2, but it has been around a bit longer and seems closer, so it seemed reasonable to focus on it. In particular, because it looked like it would solve a real problem with partitionable devices. The latest discussion actually is that the use case that was used as the motivation was a bit questionable. It was about special mode for NVIDIA GPUs, and it actually doesn't work like that as described in the CAP, but we'll discuss further. I honestly haven't seen a CAP PR for this one. This one I looked at. Sharing affinity also, that also is fairly well along. Yeah, and the NUMA node, I saw the discussions. I left some comments about whether it should be list or that's the same question actually. The current proposal in that CAP is it is a list in all cases, which makes it depend on the list types feature. And I was basically raising proposing that it could be both a simple string, a simple value if there is no need for a list, and a list if there is. And if we define that upfront, then I think it's fine, and it could already be useful without list types. Yeah, Francesco?
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure this is being discussed in the CAP because, well, long story short, we talked about a bit, and in the case of NUMA node, could also be a bit different than that because should be a list, but an ordered list. And I'm not sure the current, literally not sure the current semantics of list in the DRA encodes that. Meaning the ideal representation of NUMA node as list is that the first to the leftmost entries are actually preferred. They are not all equal. So it's a sorted list, should be a sorted list because it should encode the distance, or at least that was an idea floating around.
Yeah. I don't know about the exact semantics. So if it's a list, we just do, well, yes, this is what's in the CAP. It basically says it's just the intersection. It doesn't, there's no preference that I noticed. It just is really, there must be some intersection.
Yeah, okay, that could be a follow-up though, because in the case of the NUMA nodes, there is, the distance vectors. So not all nodes are equally close. One is closest. So if you can, you should try hard to use the closest, and encoding the distance is going, well, probably didn't emerge in the CAP, but should something we discussed in the past. So yeah, okay, that's it. That could be a future extension maybe, but that could also create an API breakage then if we go, I mean, the question becomes for the CAP, I mean, I will comment because if we need to encode the distance, would that encoding fit in the list, or would it be a breaking change somehow? That's a good question I should raise in the CAP discussion.
So I don't know what the slit distance is, but at least it's currently specified as being that. The relevance of the order, I think, is not currently called out in the CAP. So if we want it to be significant, we need to define it now.
Okay. Okay. No, basically, sorry, go on.
Yeah, because if we don't define it, a DRA driver that doesn't know about this requirement might not publish it in the expected order. So we have to specify that now and make sure that people follow it. Otherwise, we can't rely on it in the future. It would that would then create an additional extension of the semantic of this field and of this attribute. And that's exactly the thing that we can't do, because we can't say in V1 of this attribute, it wasn't ordered, and in V2 it is, because we don't have a versioning.
So basically, it boils down to the NUMA distances thingy. Basically, boils down that indeed the order of the values in the list matters, and the ones on the left or on the right or whatever. There is one order in the list. That's the key nuance, which is going to possibly be lost or create a breaking change in the future. So yeah, okay. So I will comment on the cap and raise the point that if I understood correctly, the ordering currently is not significant. Any value carries equal values in the list, so everyone is equally good.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I really haven't looked at this semantics that much, because I'm not too familiar with NUMA and what SLIT even stands for, which is perhaps another follow-up that the CAP should provide some more reference to what is even taking as granted, that a reader knows, because I didn't. But well, I blamed that on my lack of knowledge, and perhaps it was more obvious to others. I don't know.
Okay, no problem. The key point is that we need to be mindful of the fact that if we want to encode an order in the list, we really cannot now, and we need to take into account for the future evolution of the API. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. It's definitely worthwhile to discuss it now, because this is even though it's a cap, it pretty much goes to V1 immediately, unfortunately. I'm sometimes thinking whether we should have a different way of representing standardized attributes, some way that supports versioning, but I'm really not sure how to do that, how it would fit into the API. Yeah. But if we keep running into this, we may have to do something. But on the other hand, other Kubernetes APIs, attributes and labels and attributes have the exact same problem. And I don't think anyone has come up with a workable solution. Okay. Yeah, any questions about any other caps or any other feature that you are working on? I think, yeah, Bang?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on the performance update that I need to do. I see your comments. Does this mean that I should raise another PR that create a new use case? And like the current PR will pending on mine, or is this the current PRs can go as is and I just update the case later?
Yeah. Please take my patch that I posted, create a new PR, and just basically replace everything that you have for consumable capacity in your performance config with something that is realistic. Because I think once I started looking into what we actually merged already, I don't think it makes much sense to keep it. Yeah.
Okay. I because I don't want to change that much in his PR, so that is why I just keep the one slide, like just add the stuff. But I have a locally change the use case and try with their performance running, like adding just like the device number into 41X, and then updating the number. So I can update the case.
Yeah. We need to update the case first, merge that, run it for a while in the CI, and then add the performance thresholds after it has been executed for a while. Because otherwise we don't get any entry in the perf dashboard that tells us what the current performance is. We need that first before we can add the performance threshold. And that's what the existing PR does. But it does it does that based on basically test cases and scenarios that aren't realistic. So yeah, we first need to update the scenarios, merge that, observe it for a few runs, and then we can update the currently pending PR.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, if you could explain, this would be very, very helpful. I mean, I'm trying to understand how things work.
Yeah.
Um,
Let
with
me
the
just
current performance number, I never reached like at least 56 or something like that. It seemed like the average one of the normal case. But I just wonder whether like what I did wrong, because like when I disable the consumable capacity on the current test case and like remove everything out, I still didn't get the 56. I still get 20 something in the case. So I just wonder like whether I used the wrong test case or something.
Okay, so I brought up the PR. That's one we are discussing, and it's just for I'm recapping now for the others. So basically, the purpose of a PR was to add missing performance labels, and it did that. It basically, well, this already includes now more things. It added the performance label, which were missing in a few cases. And I think in some other places it added thresholds. But now the PR is pretty much not useful right now, because it also includes proposed changes for other things, a fix for steady state testing. Yeah. And while we explored the performance numbers that were observed, we found basically that the test cases aren't realistic. And I started a thread here for consumable capacity, but partitionable devices has the same issue. So yeah, my latest state is this one. It's against master more or less, I think. And the problem was, yeah, the parts that I didn't. Well, okay, let's look at it. It set up a driver which itself published resource slices, the max claims per node, but those were, I believe, not the ones that then were picked for scheduling. Instead, it also created this consumable capacity resource slice with a node selector based on the nodes that were created earlier for the array. So there were all kinds of things in the cluster available, and then I think consumable capacity, the device class, picked the ones from this slice here based on the set expression. So, and I think I'm not even fully cleaning that up properly either. We really need to define exactly what we expect to have in the cluster in terms of resource slice, how it's used, and make sure that it's realistic. The first step is that I found that we can have a deterministic node name with latest scheduler perf that was recently added. It wasn't possible when I first came up with how to create DRA nodes. But now we can have a deterministic name, and then is it actually included here? Must be somewhere. Yeah, here in the no, that's the node template. So that's where we make the name deterministic, and then we use that deterministic name in the resource slice. So we now, with that patch, we have properly defined our resource slices of the test driver so that it's per node, and that's more realistic. So that's the first step. And then I also cleaned up, basically, yeah, I removed the manual deployment of a test driver because we don't want any other resource slices, I think. But that's up for debate. I think it's more useful to focus on one thing and not make this scenario too complex by having unused resource slices, for example. And yeah, I think the other thing is you had a comment here. The first request checks distinct attributes and the other match attributes. And I did not actually see that in the requests.
Yeah, it should be. I don't know. Yeah, I will update that. I mean, like, I think I create 2 requests, but I didn't put the distinct. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, I will confirm that there to make sure that the distinct one is used as well. Yeah, the reasons I asked about the performance because like I'm trying to do the profilings, like how is spending the time, but I didn't see it spending the time on like the capacity comparisons. So I just wondered where
No, the performance was bad because of the node selector.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. That caused some of the work of gathering information about the cluster to basically pull in all the resource slices in the cluster when considering a single node. Because there is pre-filtering on the node name if it's used, but it wasn't.
Okay, I think this patch makes sense to me that is good improve a little bit number. I will apply a patch and update the test case, create the PR.
Yeah. And this the main exercise will be to come up with a correct description of what the scenario should look like. So basically, describe all the resource slices, describe what the requests look like, what the expected usage of that cluster then is, and then from that description follows what we deploy. And if that matches, we know what's going on, we know what we are testing here, and the numbers then we can verify that it's a realistic scenario. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted or can perhaps explain a bit more is this steady state thing. So in other places, I didn't make that a parameter of the individual sub test case, but this is also fine. It works both ways. So like we have it here is okay. The difference is if you don't use steady state false, the test case creates all pods, waits until all of them are scheduled, and calculates metrics over the entire run. Well, actually, it does also min max or the percentiles, but the pod scheduling rate, which we use as main metric, isn't actually steady or isn't the same throughout the run. It's higher initially, and then it can slow down. That's what I did. What I saw when I did some performance analysis quite a while ago. So I came up with a steady state instead. In the steady state, we start with a cluster in a certain state. Say it's completely empty, no pods scheduled. Then we create 10 pods, wait until they are scheduled, delete them again, and repeat. So basically, the utilization of a cluster is, in this case, between 0 and 10% because there are 100 nodes. And the pod scheduling rate is much more stable and predictable throughout the experiment. And that's why the steady state measurements also can complete in 10 seconds. We basically just repeat over and over. And if we have enough samples, we may schedule hundreds or 10 of these batches, and we have a good number within 10 seconds. So I overall think that the steady state approach is more useful for performance testing. It's not comparable to some of the other scheduler perf use cases because they use the other approach, which has this problem of averaging basically performance. With the steady state, we can more deterministically measure performance for different utilizations of a cluster. Right now, all we can do is empty because we don't schedule any pods in advance. If you look at some other steady state measurements, they have init pods. These are pods using DRA that get scheduled, are kept around, and then the experiment starts. That's how the half full and full testing is done elsewhere. You don't need to add that now. Just fixing the empty case is already a good step forward, but we might consider it. We can discuss it with PR.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for explaining all of this. I think I somehow get like the idea and like okay, yeah. I will patch and I will try running the performance locally and create a PR.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether I gave a full command. I might have at some point, but can also copy and paste it into the PR. Yeah, let me paste the full command that I was using because it needs some parameters. They are all in the README, but it might be worth just holding it for the sake of completeness. And yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, as I said, it needs a few parameters, but they are also documented, and you might have used the same thing.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's similar, but I think you add some like log stuff. But yeah, thank you so much. I will try with this one.
Yeah, that may or may not be in the documentation. Full log is basically, I think that's just verbosity. It shouldn't affect the performance. I just wanted to see as things happening that they get output, that they get printed.
Yeah, I think I get the similar command in some document inside.
Yeah.
Copy this one. Thank you.
Okay. Let me get back to the gaps. Yeah, but nothing comes to my mind right now that we could talk about. So yeah, okay. Well, Vijay.
Yeah, so coming back to that PR we were discussing right now, so that PR like still remain there until that work is done, right? The performance label we are added on those tests.
Yeah, so your PR basically needs to wait now.
Yeah, okay.
Until we've updated the actual test cases.
Okay.
And then we do what we originally planned to do, which was adding the thresholds based on numbers. So the PR is still fine, and you found some real issues here, which is very worthwhile. So we just need to wait a little bit more for things to settle down.
Yeah, okay. And another thing was like I was planning to pick up couple of enhancement issues. So I would like to know the procedure. Like how do we do that? Like first we discuss the solution and approach, or raise KP directly, or like how things are going.
So you're talking about KEP issues that we have filed but don't have an owner, right?
Yeah. So one of the issue I picked, and okay, I'm commenting that.
Yeah. Let me bring up our dashboard and filter by enhancements. Where it is. So we have a few in backlog. Now backlog is not quite the same as not assigned. Some of these have an owner, we are just not doing any work for them
Yeah, yeah.
in this cycle. That's why I put them into backlog.
Okay.
So the distinction between backlog and ready is a bit fuzzy. I do not always keep that up to date.
So issue
So-
number 5719. So second last, I guess, on the screen
The
from backlog. Yeah, 5719.
five,
Below that.
seven
Below that.
reserved
Yeah,
capacity.
reserve capacity.
Yeah. This is currently an idea that John raised, and that's all
so
we have. And if you want to work on it, you can basically comment on it. Yeah, and you did. So that's fine. Regarding Google Doc versus PR, if you're really starting out completely fresh, a Google Doc might be a bit easier because it's easier to make suggestions and handle suggestions. And given that we are not going to do this for 137, there's really no chance. Google Doc now is fine. We can link to it. You can invite people to co-edit with you, and we can put it into a good shape. And then when you publish it as a PR, we have less work to do in the pull request for the CAP, because most of the simple fixes will already be done. And
okay, yeah, okay. Then I will create the Google Doc and make the things what I have understand and what we want to do in this case. In this issue, and yeah, I will invite you, John, and whoever is reviewing, giving comments and the right path, and yeah, then I can take it forward from there.
Yep.
Yeah, and there another one was adding expression, I think. That one.
Variables.
Yeah.
Cell variables.
Yeah.
That is an usability enhancement that hasn't any owner. Given that we don't have many people writing cell expressions, it's not urgent, which is why it's got lower priority.
Okay.
But it certainly it could be worthwhile. In particular, if we consider the derived attributes, it might become more important. So yeah, if you have a capacity, that's not a bad issue to start with. And we have reviewer. Well, we will probably need reviewers from API machinery, but there are precedences, so you can look up existing support code for variables and figure it out how to do it. So if you want to take this one, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. So this one is more easier than that one, or how is it like?
I think from an implementation perspective, the variables in Cell is easier.
Okay.
Because there is prior art, the API is pretty clear. Basically, make it the same as in other parts of the existing code base, and then copy the code to implement it. That should be relatively straightforward. You need to dig in a little bit and understand what's going on in other parts, but there is precedence. That makes it easier.
Okay.
For the reserved capacity, we don't know how to do it. You basically need to come up with an API from scratch, figure out all the corner cases about when to reserve, how to handle use cases, what the use cases really are for this. So this one definitely is more in the exploratory design phase, where we may run into unexpected questions and problems. So that makes it harder.
Okay, fine. But like we have enough time. Like let's say we target it for 1.38, and maybe it will go, and I will also get more time to go into the API and iterate and provide solution on top of that. So, and like I have capacity, so I can work on both side by side.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you work on only one thing, you basically are blocked and idle as soon as you start depending on someone else to review. Being able to flip back and forth between multiple different things, that's a good way to always have something to work on. The downside, of course, is that you also need to do the context switching, but yeah, that's kind of inevitable.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Context switching is fine.
Yeah. Well, it adds overhead. Like your
Yeah.
computers, the human brain isn't always able to do too many things at once. But you might work on this for 1 week and then pick the other one for the next week, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Except during cat freeze and cold freeze, then you basically you will switch if assuming that we both target the same release, you will be busy during some periods by basically moving both forward at the same time, but it's manageable.
Yeah, and like does like every enhancement needs feature gates and things like that, or just major feature needs feature gate enabled? And
Both need feature gates. So this variables in cell, that's a simple extension of an existing API that just needs a feature gate, and the API will be an extension of a V1 API. So basically an alpha field in a GA structure, but that's normal. That's how we do extensions of GA APIs. The reserved capacity, yeah, we don't know yet what the API is. If you need a new top-level type, and that might very well be the case because we haven't really thought about the API at all, then the new top-level type goes into the currently existing V1 Alpha 3 resource KSIO API group. So you don't start a new alpha version just for it. We have V1, we bumped up the V1 Alpha to V1 Alpha 3, and it's okay to add a new type directly in it. We did that for the resource slice summary feature.
Okay.
But it will only be in that alpha initially. And that means it will be off by default. If you create a beta, it will still be off by default, because then the top level type will be only in a beta API group, and API group versions that are beta are always off by default. So that's something to keep in mind, but it shouldn't influence the API choices. We need an API that makes sense, and then we'll graduate it according to the normal rules.
I don't think like it needs new type, but yeah, we can add one flag in existing type itself. So existing API can be extended.
Maybe it's just a special attribute or something, or standardized taint. Yeah, it's completely open how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing else, then we can stop 10 minutes earlier. Going 3, 2, 1. Thanks. I guess that was another productive session. See you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.